Hi, Cathy Neptune here. Welcome. I'm going to give you tips, tools, and recipes to make your time in the kitchen fun, fast, and fabulous. And especially during these difficult times, and I know you know what I'm saying. You want to have a lot of things on hand that you can work with. It might not always be convenient for you to go to the store, so I'm going to help you do that. And we're having a yogurt yoga segment tonight. We're going to take that yogurt and work it and rework it and twist it around and do all kinds of things. And the fun thing is, we're going to do homemade yogurt, which is so easy to do. You're going to be amazed. I hope you try this at home. It's one of those things, and I think this is a good thing, that it tastes just like what you buy in the stores. It's a little tangier, but the big plus is it's convenient. And if you start out with a cultured yogurt, any variety of cultured yogurt you can see on there, and make sure that it's a plain, non-flavored cultured yogurt. And when you make one batch of homemade yogurt, just save out about half a cup and you can reuse it. It's much like the sourdough of the yogurt world. Just save a starter and you'll never have to buy yogurt again. You can add your flavorings, your seasonings, use it instead of mayonnaise. And we're even going to do yogurt cheese. So we're going to go the whole route on yogurt. So welcome to yogurt reimagined. So we're going to take a thermos bottle, okay? And what you do is you start out by pouring water inside your thermos and then pouring it into a measuring cup and see how much capacity you have. And you want it in equal amounts of 1 cup measurements. Now, this thermos holds exactly 3 cups. So I would pour 3 cups of milk into a dish or a pitcher and warm it in the microwave. Not as warm as you would a yeast mixture, but warm enough, probably about 80, 82 degrees. Use a thermometer if you have to, but just so it's lukewarm to the touch. Mix it up before you take the temperature of the milk. And then while it's warming in the microwave, I take and put hot water in the thermos and warm up your thermos before you pour in your milk. And then you just take a good heaping tablespoon or more, and I use a big one like this, for each cup of yogurt. Mix it around and just put it on the counter overnight. You, of course, cover it up, leave it overnight in the on the counter. You don't need to refrigerate it. And the next morning, look at this. You have homemade, beautiful, thick, creamy, natural yogurt. And I use whole milk. You get a richer yogurt when you start out with the whole milk. And that is what we have for our yogurt. Now I'm going to show you all different things you can do with this. And one of my favorite things to do is to make naan bread, Naan, naan bread, which is it doesn't have yeast in it, but it does have a leavening agent of baking powder. So you start out with 4 cups of flour in here, and then I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of salt, just regular table salt. Sprinkle it in there. Oh, I got a flavored salt in there. That's peppercorn. And then 2 teaspoons of that. And then you want 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And these are ingredients you probably have on hand. And then if you make your own yogurt, that's really all you need in your pantry. So they're basically pantry items. Make sure you check and make sure that your baking powder is active and it's fresh, because there is a shelf life and it's very time sensitive, but it's usually a good amount. And look what I do. I have a container here. And I mix up a whole batch of this, and you just take a whisk and mix it all in together, and then I put it into a plastic bag and make sure and label what it is. But I know this is only for my self-rising flour. And look, I put the ingredients and the measurements right in here inside the cap in case I forget, but I've done this so many times. It's just so delicious. And wait until you see how it comes out. I'm going to start heating my cast iron skillet here. You'll see on the stove. And you can use a griddle pan as well if you'd like. So I'm going to set that over here. And we're going to make our naan bread. And we're going to use 1 3/4 cups of flour. You're going to love doing this. This is a great project for the kids too. What a great time to have them in the kitchen and teaching them all different basics. Because it's, I mean, how cool is this to say, you know what, we made bread yesterday and it's this easy to do. So you want to take a scoop and always level out like so. Tap it, make sure it settles. And that's 1 3/4 cup of self-rising flour. So that's 1/4. And you want to measure because baking is like a science. And terrible things happen if you don't measure. There's a story there, but trust me, you want to always measure. So how hard is that so far? And then use 1 cup of yogurt that I've measured out. I'm going to set this aside. And I have my griddle going. And we're going to take, this is exactly 1 cup of this wonderful homemade yogurt. So you're always going to have your self-rising flour. And of course you could buy it at the store, but the key here is to eliminate having to go to the store too many times. And you don't have to need this. You just want to make sure you incorporate all the yogurt in here into a nice dough. It smells so good and so fresh. And just kind of mush it around. That's a technical term. And then we're going to have a little flour to put on, what we call bench flour, so that it will rise out. It'll not stick to your surface. Put that over here. There's something about homemade breads and doing your own. It's so satisfying. So here's a little bit of flour, bench flour on there. And we want to take, let's start out with a few small ones. Only about that much. Put a little more flour on it. This is not an exact science, which is why I love this bread. And you just roll it. Keep turning it in the flour, and you'll get the hang of this. Put a little flour on your rolling pin. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And your skillet is nice and hot. And we're going to put a little bit of oil because I love the flavor of the oil. And this pan is smoking. And we're going to put it down on there. And it's going to puff a little bit. Sometimes they puff, sometimes they don't. But it depends on the mood of the flour. I'm going to do a couple of small ones and then a couple of larger ones. We're going to do little fillings and toppings, of course, all made with yogurt, that are going to go on the top. And you're only cooking them for about 1 minute on the sides. Now, in India, they use what they call a tandoori oven, which is like 1,000 or 800 degrees, very hot. But on here, I think the cast iron skillet works really well and kind of mimics a tandoori oven. That's why I like having a cast iron skillet, because you really need something that'll hold the heat. But like I said, if you want to do a larger griddle, one without the ridges on it, you can certainly get a lot on there and cook it a lot faster. So I'm going to make a larger one because we're doing something else with some chicken, and we're going to fill this much like you would pita bread. You can see it's not very fussy, and you can kind of adjust it and patch it as you go. And you get very good at doing this and eyeballing. If you want it thinner or thicker, you just roll it a little more, and always have the flour handy to go. And I'm going to turn these Look at how golden. This is one side. Look at how beautiful that is. Very rustic, but that's what you want. And they're so tender and so moist. And you don't want to get on the phone when you're doing this because you really kind of have to watch them. And they're just, they keep amazingly well, too. So you can do a few ahead of time. I'm going to do another big one. So you kind of get the idea of how non-fussy this is to do. You can get a larger or smaller rolling pin, whatever you have. You can even use a clean wine bottle and use that if you don't have one, which is use what you have. Don't go to that store unless you have to. You know how that goes these days. Standing in line outside is not my thing. And make sure you always have a mask that matches your outfit. That's important. So there's two. And I'm going to take these out. Now, how quick was that? No kneading, no letting it rise. You don't have to worry about how much or how little yogurt you put in there. It's very, very easy to do. Look at how beautiful these are. Boy, they're good too, right out of the oven with a little bit of butter in them. Really good. So I'm going to brush a little more oil into our skillet. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Now my oven goes to all the way up to 6. I barely, just a little bit over 3, so about a medium high heat on your skillet, just to give you an idea. Okay, so not too hot, not too low. And then you just drop it in there. Oh, I wish you could smell how good these are. Let's do a few more little ones. And you know, if you wanted to do this for a dinner party or bring this as an appetizer, can you imagine how cool that is? This homemade naan bread. I'll tell you, life is good. And this dough, I find if it's a little bit more relaxed now. You notice how these are a little easier to roll out. And I'm just going to do a few, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to serve with it just to get started on this. So we have a few in on the way. And again, it's very important to keep a lot of flour handy because you can see it does get a little sticky, but not a problem. It's not like pie dough where you have to worry about it's going to get tough. It just doesn't. It's so manageable. The other one's ready to turn. Oh my gosh, this looks so much like Syrian bread. Wait until you see this one. This one's going to be good. And got a few. Let's do a few more while we're waiting. You can certainly do these the night before and just cover them with a cloth or some plastic wrap and warm them in the oven right before you serve them, just to make them nice and soft, much like you do with Syrian bread, you know. And they make wonderful, wonderful, any leftovers if there are any. I use them to make breadcrumbs, and we're serving this with a tandoori-style chicken. And, you know, I had some leftover naan bread, and I put it in the food processor, and I made breadcrumbs. So how cool is that? And it gives it a wonderful, wonderful flavor. So I'm going to roll this out, put our other ones in, and all it takes is a little bit of time and attention. But you can see it's perfect timing. By the time you roll one out, the other one's ready to flip and so forth. So you just keep going. Put on some nice music. This is a good project. And then I'm going to show you on here. Here is our very first naan bread. Look at this, how golden that is. That is a work of art. And it's fabulous. So I'm going to get this other one in here. I'm going to finish up a few more. And when we come back, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the bread and what we're going to put inside of it. So we'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Look at all of our naan bread. We have our beautiful, I made some larger pieces, and then we made some small ones that we're going to use a little bit later on as well in a dip that we're making. Now we want something yummy to go in our large naan bread that we made with our homemade yogurt. And I wanted to mention, too, that I used in the pan when I preheated my skillet, my cast iron skillet, I used olive oil in there. I brushed it in between each time that I put some bread dough in there. And it gives it a really, really nice flavor to your naan bread. Just anytime you can add flavor. You could probably use vegetable oil, but I love the flavor that the olive oil imparts. And sometimes if your dough seems a little bit tough or you like a little softer dough, I've even added like a teaspoon of olive oil to the mixture in the naan bread. But it depends on the humidity and the type of flour that you have. But feel free to do that. The more flavors you can add, but it's just basic ingredients. And then I thought it'd be fun. I have a skillet on the stove, and I've marinated some chicken pieces in, guess what? Yogurt, some olive oil, and some garlic and some fresh basil. And I just smashed the garlic and left it in one piece because I didn't want chunks of fresh garlic on the chicken because it gets bitter when you fry it. And if you don't have fresh basil, but I happen to have it in my garden, you can, of course, use plain powdered or dry garlic, whatever you like to do. So I'm putting that in there. And you can flavor these breadcrumbs. And I used a little bit of smoked paprika, garlic, chili, and chives, a spice blend. If you have a rotisserie blend, if you wanted to do like an Italian style or a Greek rub style, go right ahead and do whatever flavors you think you'd like, because we're going to serve this with a cucumber tzatziki sauce on the top, which is, again, easy to use. Wait until you see how we do that. Using our wonderful yogurt. And this isn't all of these recipes that I'm giving you. It's an overload on garlic and yogurt, but they all are so wonderfully flavored. You don't have to serve them all at once, but it's nice to do. And I have my skillet heating this time with vegetable oil because we got enough flavors going on. And the breadcrumbs I mentioned were a mixture because I didn't have a lot of naan bread, but I used a ground up fresh bread and naan bread in a food processor. Another way of saving yourself a trip to the grocery store is by using just what you have on hand. And I added something else to this marinade. It smells so good and so many flavors in here for just a few ingredients. We're draining off the yogurt overnight in the refrigerator, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the liquid that drains off is off of the yogurt to make our yogurt cheese is a clear liquid, and I added a little bit of that back into the marinade, and that way you're not throwing it out and you're utilizing every part of the yogurt. And you can even marinate, cut your chicken up, put it in the freezer and just use the marinade, and it protects your chicken from getting freezer burn, and just pop it in the freezer, label it and date it. And then you can have a wonderful meal ready to go. But the yogurt that is drained makes a very good marinade as well. So these just take a few minutes to do, and I'll show you some that we've already done. And I'll turn that off. And look at how golden brown these are. These come out so beautiful. Look at that. And they're so moist and so tender. You're going to love them. They're just great. We got a few more going. And these were only 2 large chicken breasts, fresh chicken that I bought. And they cook up in no time. And who doesn't love chicken done this way? It's so good. So we're going to just turn those over and finish those in the pan. And then we're going to make our sauce to go on top. Tzatziki sauce, which I guess this is kind of a Greek and Indian-inspired meal. We'll just let those go for a few seconds. And we're going to make our tzatziki. Now, I grated a small, very small amount of cucumbers. And I like the English kind because you don't have to take and peel them. So I'm going to take and put those in a bowl. And it's probably, you end up with about, I don't know, a half a cup. A scant half a cup of shredded cucumber. And these are all the juices that came out and drained because I put a little bit of salt in here. So we don't need a lot of salt in our recipe because it has the salt in the cucumbers already. So these cook very quickly. I'm going to turn that off, and those are done. So I'll leave those there. And then into this, I'm going to add more of what? Our fabulous yogurt. Probably 2 teaspoons. And this is all just by eye. And this is a very Greek recipe to have. I have a little bit of dried dill. You can certainly use fresh, but remember to use half the amount when it's fresh because the dry is, use half as much of the dry because it's concentrated. So there's another Greek flavor that you're adding in. And we're going to add, I'm going to grab a little bit of chives here. Just because I love the fresh onion flavor. And the measurements, if you want a little more of any of these ingredients, you just add a little bit more. It's no big deal because it's your recipe. And I'm going to add a small clove of fresh garlic. Not a lot because it isn't a cooked garlic. So you need very little. Goes a long way. Oh, it smells so good. And I don't know, maybe we could use a little more. Why not? And again, you don't need salt because the cucumbers were salted. These are great recipes when you have an abundance in your garden. And I have a friend, Terry, that has a fabulous garden. And he's just having a great season this year with all his heirloom tomatoes. So I'm going down and pay him a visit. And so that's our tzatziki sauce. So how good does this look so far? We're going to take a nice, make sure you have a chicken plate. I'm going to take and assemble this. And we're going to put down a little bit of shredded lettuce. Take this, put it down here. So it's kind of semi-healthy because there's veggies in it and chicken, all marinated in homemade yogurt. And then I'm going to get the tomatoes over here. We're going to get a piece of chicken. You could do a lot of this ahead of time. You can see how easy this would be to do. 2 nice big pieces of fresh chicken. Look at these tomatoes. Aren't they beautiful? It's just go to and support your local farmers because I'm telling you, it's been a great year for tomatoes and corn and peaches. It's fabulous. I think, you know what, I like a little bit of feta cheese in my tzatziki, but you can certainly put it on top, but I like the way it combines in there, so I'm going to add it here. I find if I put the feta cheese on top, it all falls out the sides, so mix it up with your tzatziki, and then look at this. How beautiful. This is a feast for the eyes. All done with yogurt. Look at this. With homemade naan bread. Chicken that's dredged in the naan bread crumbs, marinated in yogurt and garlic and basil. And it's kind of like a wrap. So I hope you try this. This is a really good recipe. And when we come back, I'm going to do a yogurt cheese. Wait until you see this. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Wait until you see what we're doing here next with our yogurt yoga. And we have here, you have to see this. I took our yogurt that we made, handmade, homemade yogurt, and I put it in a strainer. And this is just a coffee filter overnight. And check out that liquid that I was telling you about that we used. And you can use that to thin out the rest of your dishes, and we're going to use it a little bit later when we make a dressing. Now I have about a 1/4 cup of feta cheese in here because the yogurt is very tart and you want to have some kind of flavor in your yogurt. So what you do is you just kind of squeeze out the yogurt. That's good. And leave that there. And this is good if you do it the night before so it has a little more flavor. But you can certainly add whatever you'd like to the mix. So putting that in, I like for color a little bit, again, chives. And then wouldn't be yogurt without adding, again, a little more garlic right in there. And I'm not going to use the whole clove. Be careful when you use garlic because it's not cooked, so it tends to be very, very strong in flavor. So we're mixing that up. And that's our yogurt cheese. And this is really, the more this sets, you could even do this the night before, like I said. It makes a wonderful blend. And you can make any amount that you want. That's what I love about these recipes. You can just eyeball it or do it, this would make a nice luncheon just for yourself. And I'm making a little well into the center like so. And we're going to take store-bought tabbouleh. And I'm just going to put it in the top. How beautiful is this? It's healthy. It's refreshing. It just is so yummy. And you could do a big platter with this. But I just want to give you a little idea of what to do with another version of yogurt cheese, and that's just like cream cheese. So use it just as you would cream cheese, and I put this and serve that with our little naan bread dippers. Is that beautiful? It's easy, refreshing, it's fast, it's colorful, it's light, and don't forget, it's homemade from yogurt. Now, something else that we're going to do in our yogurt yoga, I have a little tad, probably a tablespoon of mayonnaise in here. And I'm going to add a little bit more of our yogurt in there. Equal amounts, I'd say maybe a little bit more yogurt. And we're making a salad dressing. I always like to put a little bit of salt, just a pinch of salt in there. And where's the liquid? I'm going to make kind of a ranch dressing. So remember our cucumber that we drained? This is a liquid from the cucumber. So you have your yogurt, which is like a buttermilk, and you have your cucumber in there. And you're making kind of like a ranch dressing. It has all the flavors of a ranch dressing. Little parsley because I can. You don't have to. You can always use store-bought in a container, the dried parsley. This is fresh basil. So then when you take the lid off, you can smell all these wonderful fragrances. And you can also use an Italian dressing mix if you have a little Italian, because it has different like oregano and other spices in there, but you already have the basil in there. Oh, this is a new one. That's why it didn't work. And you always have an Italian dressing on hand, right? So we're going to put a little smidge of that. And I like a little bit of olive oil to thin it down. Probably a tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons. And then what I like to do, I collect different flavored vinegars. So you can use one of your favorite vinegars. I'm going to use a nice light
rice wine vinegar. These are all things you probably have in your pantry, right? And then a little bit of sugar to offset the tartness. Let me get a spoon so I don't spill it. Probably a half a teaspoon of sugar. And then I love using these little mason jars because you mix it all in here. Shake it up a little bit. And remember, you have the yogurt, the cucumber, the garlic, the herbs. You can put a little bit of feta cheese. I think I'll put feta cheese in there too, just because, might as well use it if we have it. You can also, if you didn't have feta and you wanted more of an Italian flavor, you could put in some Parmesan cheese. And this is great on a fresh tomato and cucumber salad. You're going to love it.
Shake it up. Look at that. Oh, that is going to be good. So we're going to assemble everything, our yogurt dressing and everything. We come back, we'll have everything so you can see what you can do by doing yogurt yoga. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. Look at our yoga feast. Look at all the things you could do without going to the store. If you remember to save a small amount, maybe half a cup of your yogurt starter, and make your own yogurt. Whenever you're running low, do it the night before and you're ready to go. We have a wonderful homemade yogurt, and we did our naan bread here, small, and then on the base of a little naan tostado, we have our chicken that's been marinated in yogurt dressing with garlic and herbs, and some wonderful yogurt and tzatziki sauce on the top. Plenty of garlic going on in here. And then we made a yogurt cheese that we drained, added fresh herbs, and store-bought tabbouleh. But you can certainly make your own. It's not hard to do at all. Or any kind of topping. If you want to make it Mexican, use your yogurt cheese and add some Mexican flavors and peppers and onions, and then do a salsa on the top. Also, the yogurt cheese, use it in place of your cream cheese whenever you can. Make it sweet, make it savory. You can add confectioner's sugar and vanilla to it and bump it up and take that tartness out of it. Makes a wonderful dip with fruit. And again, it's healthy, it's low fat, and save yourself a trip to the store. Our dressing, it's like a buttermilk dressing. And remember, we saved all the liquids that we drained off from making our yogurt cheese and draining off our salted cucumbers for the tzatziki. So very efficient, healthy, and colorful. So I hope you try these recipes. Remember, for the exact recipes and amounts, or for the resources for some of these tools, you can always email me and I'll be happy to send them. And thank you to everybody for watching and for sending in your suggestions and your tips. It's great to hear from you. I hope you all stay well, and may the fork be with you.